That was Danny Elfman with the album Solar. That was a fantastic album. Next up on my show, we have possibly could be one of the greatest returning actresses to Doctor Who in history. Known for her role in the late 80s as Ace, the rebellious teenager, and various other productions across the years. Here we have with us today Sophie Aldred.
All right, welcome back to what might possibly be the most thrilling episode of the Friday show we have had yet, as I have an ace up my sleeve that I've somehow managed to get a hold of. Sophie Aldred from Doctor Who and various other programmings over the years. Hello, how are you?
Hello, Liam. Hi, everybody. Great to be here.
Great to be here too. Well, we'll see with the real recent news that you're coming back to Doctor Who for a very special 60th anniversary sort of episode. So how was it coming back to the whole show again, after all these years?
It was so thrilling. I mean, I could have I could have fell over when my agent called and said that Andy Pryor, who's the casting director for Doctor Who, had done an availability check. And it was so exciting. It was just really, really great. It was just wonderful working with Janet Fielding, who I've known for years, of course, from the convention circuit, but I've never actually worked with her. So it was just, I couldn't have imagined anything greater, actually. It was so good.
I know for probably the first time on screen, it's the first time that Ace gets to interact with Janet Fielding's Tegan. So what was it like working with, Janet for the very first time on screen?
Yeah, it was great because Janet, as I said, she's been a very good friend. But we didn't. It was brilliant because I watched Tegan. I remember her vaguely from when she was in the show before. I mean, I was in my late teens and just off to university when she joined. So I didn't see that much of her, but from what I knew and from what I've learned over the years, she's a very popular character, Tegan, and of course we're both playing ourselves much older now, but I think the characters go together really well. They're both pretty feisty, both kind of gung ho, kind of don't mince our words. So I think Ace and Tegan are a good combo.
Yeah, you have the feisty young English character mixed in with the feisty Australian character, so it's definitely not one to be messed with, especially what I've seen from images on Twitter and all that. The baseball bat comes back for a second round. I love that. How was that, getting back with the old props again? And
that's wonderful. It was quite funny though, because it's a real flash on the trailer, and I missed it when I saw it, and then my son showed me a picture of me whacking the Dalek, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's a mistake, and then of course we realized that it literally is a couple of frames that they snuck in there. But good old Doctor Who fans, you analyze these things, so it wasn't long before I realized that yes, it was indeed in the trailer.
Yeah, I was looking through Twitter, I was like, hang on a minute, we are definitely going back for a full 1988 remix or whatever. So from that, we're going to dive back straight to your beginning, so straight to the very start. So take me back to your very early roots of acting and where it pretty much all got started.
Well, I don't know where it came from. I just loved the idea of acting. And when I was about 5 or so, I used to boss around all the neighborhood kids, and including my brother, who's younger than me. And they all had to be in my plays that I wrote and directed and starred in. And we were doing a lot of things like fairy tales, I think. And I always had a great imagination. So I would just make up stories like kids do and then act them out. And it's just something I always really wanted to do. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. So
Mm.
yeah, that's how it all started. And then I went to school, and I had a very good drama teacher when I was about 8 years old. I had a wonderful drama teacher who really encouraged me to do plays, and she wrote adaptations of stories into plays herself. So we used to do those, and it was just, I loved it. I loved the whole thing about acting. I did some at my secondary school. I did a lot of musical theatre, a lot of, well, actually not musical theatre so much as Gilbert and Sullivan, good old school Gilbert and Sullivan, which I loved. And then I went to university and I did a drama degree, which was very unusual in those days. There were only 5 places in the UK where you could do that. And then none of that put me off. So I think, much to my father's disappointment, because I think he was a bit worried about how I was going to get a job. But then I started working in children's theatre, and then some more musical theatre, and then I got the role of Doctor Who, which was amazing.
All those years later, would you cite from any, like, was there any like TV shows that were maybe on that maybe would have maybe cited or maybe influenced your way into acting? Because I know the BBC have a plethora of iconic TV shows, and definitely one of my favorites, family favorite, is The Goodies. You know, that comedy sort of slapstick, which has definitely influenced into a lot of our own comedy here in Australia. So
yeah, it's amazing that you got The Goodies in Australia. I know it was so popular. I loved it too. I was just the right age to watch it when it first came out, and my brother and I loved it, and we that was really our favourite comedy show. I think it just was so appealing to us at that age. Yeah, I don't think anything ever. I don't know. I just knew that's what I wanted to do, and I did it kind of my own way. I wasn't really particularly influenced by anything. There was a really good drama show I remember, but not particularly for the acting, in the 70s, called Survivor, which I think Big Finish, the audio CD company, have reignited interest in that series. And I remember watching that, and that was my first big drama series that I really remember being kind of on the edge of my seat and really not being able to wait until the next week when the next episode would come out. It was a kind of dystopian future where the world, funnily enough, has been the human population has been killed by, mainly they've been killed by a virus that has been dropped in a lab somewhere in Asia. At the opening titles, which was all remarkably apt a couple of years ago, and yeah, but I loved that, and it sort of followed the fortunes of a few people in the UK who got together and had to scavenge and had to live after this sort of apocalyptic event.
That's certainly interesting. I guess you working in children's theatre, musicals kind of influenced, then you would actually, after Doctor Who, you would go on to work on more children's programming, which is one that I remember from my childhood. Just then, when I was recollecting through all the stuff that you worked on, there was a show that was based on the Menace and Menace comic strips or something like that in the early 2000s. I was played a lot in Australia. And then obviously after researching about it a lot, like, oh, Sophie Aldred was a voice in that. That was actually really cool. So even before the Doctor stuff, I sort of knew about you, but not the way I do now.
Yeah, the Dennis the Menace, that was, I mean, relatively recently, I guess, but the I loved Dennis the Menace growing up. My brother and I used to get the comic in which Dennis the Menace appears, which is a very well-known comic in the UK called The Beano, and it has such characters as the Bash Street Kids were some of my other favourites as well. Roger the Dodger and Dennis the Menace and Nasher were like the iconic figures though. And so yes, I actually I played Dennis, which was a great honor for me to do that. And we had great fun doing that show. That was great. But before that, I mean, it was, funnily enough, I had this amazing year in 1987 where I not only got this role in Doctor Who, but I also auditioned for a children's presenting job on a program called Corners, which answers children's questions about everything and anything. So people would write into the program and say, why do birds fly south in the winter? Or how do you get the jam into donuts? Or how does toothpaste have stripes in it? You know, things like that. And there was me and my fellow presenter, initially Simon Davis and then Steve Johnson, and then this green puppet thing called Joe, who was kind of he did the sort of funny bits. But it was a fabulous program and I really enjoyed doing that. It was a mixture of presenting and doing comedy sketches and sing songs as well to explain how these things happen to kids. And I got those jobs pretty much nearly simultaneously, actually, the Doctor Who and then the presenting job, having not done any TV at all prior to that. And then Corners, actually, although we filmed Doctor Who first, Corners came out first. So that September, I was on TV in Corners, and then Doctor Who started. So it was amazing career I had of presenting and acting for the next sort of 3-4 years.
Yeah, there's a video out on YouTube where you actually go and meet, at the time, was the current composer for Doctor Who on Corners, which was actually really cool.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I filmed for this program, was going to meet Kev McCulloch, who did the theme for for Sylvester's Doctor, and then he did the music for Remembrance of the Daleks, and he'd done other composing as well. So yeah, I went to meet him in his little studio, and yes, that is on YouTube, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I've watched it and just numerous amount of times, just listening to all the music and all the 80s. I'm very obsessed with 80s music. Obviously, you already know that from past encounters that we've had. So definitely something that I'll probably watch again now after talking about it. You mentioned Big Finish was something that you obviously associate with, probably now more than the actual television version of the Doctor itself. What is it like, letting your voice instead of doing like physical acting? Is there differences obviously between physical acting versus, voice acting?
Yeah, that's so true, because you have to get everything distilled into your voice because there's nothing else. So, we started doing audio things pretty much straight after the show finished at the end of Survival in 1989. And there was a guy called Bill Baggs who had started up a company called BBV, Bill Baggs Video. And he commissioned people who were also fans of the show to write scripts. And he was doing a series called The Stranger, which was with Colin and Nicola. And I played a couple of parts. Those were videos. But then he had the idea of doing audio adventures. So he came up with this idea of the Professor and Ace. And so we did several audio adventures written by people. Mark Gatiss wrote one, and they were really good to do. And that was really the beginning. But the only thing about it was, of course, that Bill hadn't got the license from the BBC. And after a while, these audios came to their attention, and they said, you shouldn't really be doing this because the Professor and Ace is a bit too near the Doctor and Ace is a BBC copyright character. So please stop. So he stopped. But by that time, they'd they got quite popular. So Gary Russell, amazing Gary Russell, and Jason Haig-Ellery went along to the BBC and asked if they could get the license, and the BBC said, no, not really. Anyway, so then they went off, and I think they made something, and then the BBC heard this, and they contacted them and said, would you be interested in having the license to make Doctor Who audios? So they didn't go, they didn't sort of say, actually, that was our idea that we came to you about. They said, oh yeah, that would be great. And that's how Big Finish was born. And I think Sylvester and I did a very early one for them, and then the rest is history. And first of all, it was the Doctor Who main range, and then, oh my goodness, there's just so much else out there now.
Yeah, it's like the expanded Marvel universe of Doctor Who is Big Finish. You got so many sub branches of audios. So I got something this year for my 20th birthday I think you will like. Not only is it I think it's kind of a prop itself of Ace's love affair with the 80s and all that, but I got a boombox.
Oh, that's so lovely. Well, I wish I'd had that one, Liam, because my one was about at least four times the size of that. And it was heavy, I tell you. And it's funny because when they first gave it to me, it was really heavy. And I said, is there any way this could be made any lighter? And they put batteries in, great big fat batteries, about 6 of them. But of course, it didn't have to work. So I don't know why they took the batteries out, and it was a little bit lighter, but it was still very unwieldy, you know, this massive boombox over my shoulder. But that's what they had. Hey, that's what they had in 1987.
That was the style at the time, and then obviously got blown up. So that's canon.
Yeah, exactly.
Which design did you actually prefer better, the Silver Nemesis style or the classic style from Remembrance?
Sophie, I personally love the Silver Nemesis style. I think it's a really great design. It was made by Mike Tucker, who was one of the visual effects people at the time, who became a great friend of mine and who I ended up writing with, and who I've read a lot of his audio books. No, Mike did a fantastic design, and he's still got that prop, and he takes it along to conventions. It's great because it's got that really old-fashioned. It's so Sylvester McCoy's Doctor as well.
Yes.
It would not look out of place in the movie TARDIS, I think. It's just, you think, yeah, that's just the kind of thing that Sylvester's Doctor would make for Ace.
Yeah, and probably would actually keep, considering where we are in the movie. Ace has left the TARDIS, so that's pretty much maybe like his only memories of Ace left.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised that if he actually didn't even consider thinking of that.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Obviously, me being here in Australia, we actually don't get that many good Doctor Who guests coming for conventions. Is Australia on the cards for you anytime soon?
Well, yeah, come on, invite me, somebody. Now that we can travel again, thank goodness, it's a lot more easier. So I'd love to come back to Australia. Yeah, that would be great. I've been twice, and then once to New Zealand. So yeah, I love it. I'd love to come back.
How many years ago was that, just for reference?
Oh, let's see. The last time was my sons were. That's the only time. The only way I can work out the time. Goodness, probably about 2008, 9, maybe something around then. So it's about time I came back, isn't it?
Yeah, it was around about David Tennant was leaving Doctor Who. At the same time, I was in my first year of school, so
there we go.
There you are. It always has to reference something between the.
By the way, I've probably got that wrong, but somebody will correct me because you know these things better than I do.
Yeah, I think I was talking with the head of the fan club here in Victoria, and I think he recollects. I think maybe you coming to Club Victoria for Doctor Who? Maybe
Well,
10 years ago, I don't know.
yeah. Oh,
I mentioned
yeah.
it's
No,
always easy after
yes,
the
it is.
current
Yeah,
pandemic. Things just fly out of your head that are not necessary. But whatever. Speaking of him, he actually had a question. So our club president said question about the legacy of Ace, just as a whole, especially coming back to Doctor Who.
yes. Yeah, I mean, I think there is a legacy, isn't there? Um, I think you can easily see there's a sort of progression of like when Ace left and then when Russell T Davies wrote Rose. There's definitely similarities. The stories, those initial stories were a lot more companion centered, which had happened with Ace. To kind of draw a new audience into the program. I thought that was really clever. And the fact that she lived on a council estate and the stories were, you found out a lot about her family and her backstory. And, you know, she would go back and visit them. I mean, Ace didn't do that, but yeah, I could definitely see similarities. I think, I mean, Rose was a much, she was more mature, more emotionally mature than Ace. But she was a kind of, you know, like a very, very relatable companion. And I think that's a definite legacy of the way that Ace was written.
You mentioned the whole sort of the home thing. I was actually just thinking about this last night. I'm not surprised Perry Vale has put up some plaque saying Doctor Who was, or Ace was from here in Doctor Who or whatever, just to, you know, kind of celebrate that legacy. I think that's something they probably need to do. What do you think?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah.
I think that'd be something rather neat, you know, coming
That
into
would
the
be
60th
great.
anniversary thing. And maybe just have like some spots, maybe where Survival's films. They could put that there. That'd be really nice, actually.
Yes, excellent. That's a good idea. You tell them.
Yes, I will find their council email and I'll say that Sophie Aldred wants something for this, so you better do this. Something that always comes to mind is stuff that ends up on the DVD extras, which tends to be bloopers or outtakes. Is there any outtakes that you can recall being absolutely that just stays in your mind, that just is so iconic from your time?
Yeah, that's so funny. I was just Sylvester. I saw him yesterday because we did a convention together, and he was just mentioning one of those bloopers. So the one that I really remember, partly because I ended up making more money from the blooper being shown on a show that we had over here called "It'll Be All Right on the Night." It was shown quite a lot, and every time it was shown, I got a certain amount of money. I got more money for that than for the actual episode fee itself in the end. But yeah, it was during Silver Nemesis, and we were filming in this well, where the TARDIS landed, and it was this big sort of hangar. And then outside it was lots of sort of scrubland and bushes and a waste ground really. And Sylvester and I were kind of running across this waste ground, and he trips over and he falls over, and then he starts attacking the bush with his umbrella. So that's a real favorite. And then there's one which I don't think they got on camera, but he did it. There was something else. I think I gave him a piggyback. You know, I put him on my back, and that's what he was talking about yesterday. He said, "Remember when you gave me a piggyback?" It's funny. Oh, that's right. Because I was helping him down the stairs, I think, and I said I could give you a piggyback, and he said, "Yeah, you've done that before." That's right.
So I could see why so many people like your doer of Doctor Who, and I certainly do the most, because of the way you were on screen and all these outtakes that still survive to this day and how completely funny they are.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had a really good time. We worked really hard, but we did enjoy it. And Sylvester and I just get on so well and we had such fun doing the show.
Yeah. Well, that kind of answers everything that I wanted to ask you
Great.
and talk to you about, obviously, because obviously you're a busy person and obviously don't want to take away much of your time. So thank you for coming on the show and, you know, giving up such valuable time that could possibly be put towards a new Big Finish production or whatever. So,
well, thank you, Liam, and thank you for making the effort to dress in such a wonderful costume. I'm delighted to see you as Ace.
yes, my icon, obviously. I came out asexual last year.
Good for you.
Probably for Ace.
Wow.
So.
Isn't that great? I'm just so delighted that people have the opportunity now to express themselves exactly how they want to. I think it's great. Mm.
Well, see ya, and yeah.
Thank you, Liam. Take care and have a great because it's dark here, of course. Your next morning for me.
Yes.
So I'm just about to get ready to go to bed, and you're about to have the whole day ahead. So have a great day.
Yeah.
And bye to everybody as well. Take care of yourselves.
Yes, indeed. Take care of yourselves. Bye.